Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. It's 12:30. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today we're international, we're continental. Liam Carrigan, all the way from Japan. Ian Conroy, all the way from New Zealand. Welcome back to the show, gentlemen. I'm going to just start off by commenting on your attire, Liam. I know that you love a football jersey, but by God, that is one of the finest I've seen you wearing.
Thanks. It's Panathinaikos, I think, round about 2014. Just thought I wanted to kind of acknowledge them today because I read this morning about the real bit of class from Panathinaikos paying up the full contract of their player who sadly died last week to make sure his family are looked after, and they're going to get a testimonial next year as well. So, we talk a lot about the cynical money-grabbing nature of modern football, but that was a touch of class for Panathinaikos. So, fair play, boys. Well done.
100%. Absolutely. Brilliant. Shout out to that club. Obviously, they inspired us, let's say, Liam. Inspired? Absolutely. Our merchandise range of shamrock tops, and it all came from a picture of the great Ferenc Puskas when he was the coach at Panathinaikos, and he actually led them to a European Cup final, which is a sensational tribute to the man's talents, not just as a player, but as a coach. And he wore this brilliant shamrock top. It was a tracky top with it was like a varsity jacket. So we copied them, of course, because that's flattery, isn't it? And you can buy them if you wish at our next gig. Also on the link underneath the video. If you are watching this, give us a big thumbs up on the YouTube. It's all about the algorithm, and it gets us out there, and we become recommended on other like-minded videos. If you haven't done so already, get subscribing to the channel. We are hurtling towards 30,000, almost half of Celtic Park, all subscribing to this wee independent channel that's based in a garage somewhere in deepest, darkest Fife. Now, from Fife to New Zealand, Ian Conroy, how are you doing over there, my man?
Good, yeah. It's the international break, so time for us all to get a bit bored, waiting for it to sort of count down the days till the league starts again, and it's going to be a juicy one, isn't it? With Aberdeen, thriving Aberdeen.
Yes, and why do we have such an issue with that as a football nation? I'm going to ask you first, Liam, right? Because, in fact, the two of you guys have saw different cultures. You've experienced and observed different cultures. You're out of that Scottish football goldfish bowl, right? Aberdeen have won maximum points. Now, I seen a comment last night on YouTube, and it was factual, so I'm not disagreeing with it, but it basically listed the games that Jimmy Thielen had won, as if to say, but he's not played anybody yet. Right. However, they have faced the teams in front of them. They've got maximum points. Some of them have been at the death wins. Liam, if we do that, we say that's championship winning mentality. That's how you win leagues. When Aberdeen do it, they're scraping through. Is there really something in the psyche, Liam, where if someone is doing exactly what we complain about, many of the clubs not doing, we then can't accept it for what it is? It's a great run of form. It's a top of the table clash. As we sit here 7 games in, and we're going to be talking in the here and now, not predicting what's going to happen in May, they're at the top of the league with us. I mean, there seems to be something that doesn't allow us even to discuss that. And I'm not just talking about the media. I'm talking about within a fan base showing the respect to this football club and saying, actually, this isn't going to be any Betty Roses at the weekend here. This team, at the moment, as we sit here, are our main challengers. Now, that may change within 2 weeks. Everybody keeps telling me they don't have the squad depth. Rangers will win more games than Aberdeen come the end of the season. Yes, if you want to look at trends, that is true. But we have to talk in real time, Liam. Why not respect them for what they've done?
I mean, it's an ingrained cultural issue, right? Because, I'll be 41 next month. And in my lifetime,
just a young pop, Ian. Just a young pop, eh?
And in my lifetime, the champions of Scotland have always been either Celtic or one of the two incarnations of Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
So we're conditioned to think it's a 2-horse race. And I have been banging my head against a wall since 2012 trying to say this, that yes, we need competition, but no, it does not have to come for Ibrox. It can be an Aberdeen, it can be a Dundee United like it was in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm. Why not?
Back 81, 82, I was born 83, so running up to that, you had 4 teams that could realistically win the league then. Dundee United, Aberdeen, Celtic and Rangers. And I don't think we'll ever get back to that, but I would love to see that again. I really would. I think it would be fantastic for the game. It would make us better in Europe because we would be challenged every week as opposed to like twice a month, you know. But going to the wider picture though, you know, in the J League we have a variety of different teams that can win the league. There's every year there's a good spread of 7 or 8 teams that are going to be competitive, right? The shock package this season has been a team called Zelvia Machida, who you probably never heard of, but they are still competing for the title. And, you know, in recent years, you've had Yokohama win it twice. And I think that was the first time in, well, I think that was the first time in maybe 20 years that the same team had won the league 2 years in a row.
Right.
Because that just doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
It's actually the opposite of Scotland. There's an expectation, oh, maybe this year it's Kobe's turn, maybe this year it's Urawa's turn. There's always an expectation that a team's going to come up and win the league.
Mm-hmm.
Osaka won the league, and then 2 years later they got relegated. That's how competitive the J League is.
It's great to hear, Liam, but I do think that it is something that's ingrained. Now, people continually tell football fans, and I'm talking people who are in positions of strength in Scottish football, we need, by the way, I don't want this to be clipped as if I'm saying it, quote unquote, we need a strong Rangers, right? And I remember hearing that kind of thing from your man McRae. Remember the president of the SFA? We need, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, if Celtic keep winning trebles, it gets boring. And I'm thinking, it doesn't work like that. Celtic win a treble because they have done the preparations. They have earned their own money to buy the talent that's within that squad and in the backroom team. They have marketed and commercialised their brand to such a degree that they can bring in more money, and they deserve to win the league when they win it. But people continually tell me this, and I think, do we? I mean, I'm like yourself, Liam. I'm thinking, why not have a challenge from elsewhere outside of Glasgow? Now, I look at the capital, and I do give them a dig quite a lot in relation to the fact that they're complete underachievers, Ian. You know, you've got the two capital sides, complete underachievers. And the minute they get a sniff of success, they bottle it, they Hibs it. Right, they absolutely do. It's actually entered the Scottish football vernacular. They Hibs it. Used to be George Best it, but no, they Hibs it. They just can't. They can't actually see success through. That is something that's within the mentality of these football clubs, and then it filters into the fan base, doesn't it? So I'm looking at Aberdeen. Listen, I might be completely talking a completely different game come this time next week, guys. When I'm talking to you, if we go out there and we hammer them 4 or 5-0, right? I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be one of the really toughest, stuffiest games domestic we're going to face. And if we win by the odd goal in 3, I'm going to be delighted with that. Ian, what is it that stops us from even considering that there could be a challenge by anyone other than a team playing out at Ibrox?
I think it's, you know, it's kind of commonplace down in England, isn't it? Whereby, you know, it's the media, it's that media machine where it just continually spurts out that it's the best league in the world. You know, our media up here, it's Celtic or Rangers. Incidentally, I don't recall during Rangers' sort of period of success in the 90s, people getting sick of them winning trebles and dominating. You know, it was never uttered.
Never heard it.
No, you didn't at all. So. But I think it's the media machine really. It's centralised in Glasgow, isn't it? In that central belt, but Glasgow is where the sort of the mainstream media sort of sit, really, isn't it? And it comes from there, espousing, you know, the prowess of Celtic and Rangers. So I'm not underestimating them, and I think they're a different proposition from the likes of Hibs. And so I like Hibs. I've got a soft spot for Hibs. You know, it's the same thing about the Spurs down in England, isn't it? They're a bit Spursy, you know. They kind of sort of capitulate when the pressure's on. But I think geographically, where Aberdeen is, you know, it's the Granite City, obviously known for its building material and stuff like that. But it's a hardy city, you know. It's up there in the harsh conditions up in Aberdeen. So I think there's a different mentality up there. And I think Phelan looks like he's building some strong foundations there. He's slowly and methodically just sort of instilling that confidence. He's he's chipping away. It's all the sort of, I suppose, the cliche things, but will they have the endurance and the stamina to see it through the season? As a Celtic fan, I hope we win the league and I hope we win it at a canter. But it wouldn't be a bad thing, if it was if Aberdeen actually were a challenge. I remember a few podcasts back we were talking about when Vincent Tanti put the money in, and obviously I wonder what could have happened if that could have been a Sky kind of scenario, because Sky have got the contract with Scottish football. They've got the model already in England. Why not put the money into Scottish football to build the brand, bring the product up, make it more exciting, have exciting games, have 2 or 3 or 4 teams that can actually win the league, Hearts or Hibs and whatever. The model's all there, it's proven in England, so why not try that, Sky?
The big thing that people tend to forget is generational, I guess. I remember those Sky adverts, "Don't you forget about me." Remember, the Simple Minds soundtracked them, and you had guys like Gordon Jury, I'm not sure if he was with Chelsea or Tottenham at the time, doing sit-ups, and they all lined up, and it was one player from each team, and that was your team group. English football wasn't the sexy thing, the box office thing that it has become when Sky pumped their money in. It's a great point Ian makes. And I think there's been a few opportunities for those within the Scottish game to do a good deal, and they Hibsed it at the last minute. Remember, they had a deal on the table and we absolutely ballsed it up. So in terms of the broadcasting revenue, people go on about Scotland being a backwater. Perhaps we are, but we still don't do well enough when it comes to actually financing the game through broadcasting and sponsorship. That's out with Celtic's control. I wish we could take control of our own rights and actually do our own deal. But in relation to someone giving us a challenge, you look at Rangers and I think, why are people looking at them as if they're some massive club with loads of a budget that they could go into the transfer market in January, Liam, and sign loads of players? We all know they can't. So sometimes it just takes that extra bit of ambition for a side like Aberdeen, who find themselves in a really good position at the moment, and you think to yourself, hopefully they're there or thereabouts come January, to then have that added ambition come January to maybe go out there and buy another few game changers. Listen, it doesn't have to be £2-3 million buys. Kevin Nisbet was a flop at Millwall. Aberdeen have brought him up on loan. Brilliant bit of business, doing the job for them. You can pick players up like that. And I think that it will come down to January. It won't come down to this Saturday. It'll come down to January, where the test of Aberdeen's mettle will be in their ambition come the transfer window, Liam.
And it's all the more impressive when you think that Aberdeen sold arguably the best striker in the league last season just before the campaign started,
And they go out and buy a Millwall guy who can't get a game in Nisbet. And they're still flying high. They're flying higher than they ever did with Miovski in the team.
Well, the thing is, if you look at, us in recent years, Joe Hart, Cameron Carter-Vickers, there's a lot to be said for bringing in players from England who maybe haven't quite cut it and feel they've got a point to prove.
100%. Absolutely. And the other thing I would say in relation to getting all your ducks in a row, keeping your backyard in order and various other cliches, is that all it takes is to get a lot of the basics right, guys, right? So I'm going to use 2 examples here. In fact, I'm going to use 3, because Inverness Cali are in the news at the moment with the situation that they're in. Inverness Cali Thistle were playing Premiership football in 2017. 2017, not a million miles ago, really, right? They dropped down to the Championship, where they spend 4 seasons, and then they drop into League One. They have been monumentally mismanaged from the very, very top, and they've dropped 2 divisions, and they've not been able to manage financially as a result of that. You look at their average attendance and the drop in average attendance since obviously leaving the Premier League, where they were kind of teetering on the 4,000. They have gone down to as little as 1,900 average attendance. So a club really can't cut their cloth quickly enough at times if the descent is so dramatic. But then on the flip side of that, 2 clubs who got everything right in the kind of backroom side of things, and it shows just what can happen in the Scottish game if you get the basics right, are Airdrieonians and Queen's Park. So Airdrie, you look at Airdrie, right, and they were like perennially in League One. Then all of a sudden they started implementing systems behind the scenes, be that within youth development, recruitment, data analysis. And now you look at last season, for example, their Championship, and they're sitting 4th in the league. Not having a great season this campaign, but it just shows that these small changes, sometimes basic changes behind the scenes, can actually turn you into something of a force within the Scottish game. The best example, however, I would suggest are Queen's Park. League Two in 2021, they get promoted to League One, and then the Championship, where they finished third, incidentally, right? And they were a kick of the ball away for getting promoted. And then last season, not a great season in the Championship, but they've turned it around again. Not because they're throwing money at it, Ian, because they're getting the recruitment, the scouting, the data analysis, they're getting all that and the proper coaches in place. And you can see what can be done in Scottish football if you get all the basics right. Aberdeen, for me, the big thing they've done is they've got the managerial appointment right. You're looking at Hearts. Hearts are currently looking for a manager, unless they've appointed one in the last 24 hours. They'll get it wrong. They'll get that appointment wrong, Ian, as they inevitably will and always have done in the last 10, 20 years. But Aberdeen have got it right. So why not look at them and say, actually, they could push. And I'm not saying they're going to win the league, because I've said all season they're for second. For me, they're pushing for second. But there is definitely something within the Scottish football mentality that says, no, you can't achieve. Unless you're Celtic or Rangers, you can't achieve.
I think, didn't they get Burrows from Motherwell?
Yeah, they did. Alan Burrows.
He was a key appointment because he was doing good things at Motherwell, wasn't he? I don't know how instrumental he was in the appointment of Thielen, or how you pronounce his name. Hearts and Budge, she seemed to sort of be doing certain good things, that was sort of the fan engagement and things like that. But yeah, so continually they've got these appointments wrong. So I think Burrows has probably got a lot to do with sort of that structure that's been laid up in Aberdeen. Yep. Obviously the previous managerial appointment was a bit of a miss, Mr. Warnock, but obviously he was just a stopgap. So as I said, it remains to be seen whether they can sort of sustain it over the course of the season. But yeah, you're right, and I think it's the same. I say this to my children as well, and it's the same as any. Look at footballers. How many footballers have only got one foot? Professional footballers in the so-called best league in the world, for example, you see them, and it's like, that's your actual job. What is your actual job? Why can't you use both feet? But that's just the way it is. I think Aberdeen, they'll give us a bit of a bloody nose at some point during the season. It might even be this weekend. I can see a draw happening actually this weekend, but yeah, let's see.
Well, there's a couple of things that you brought back to mind. A proper Hibs-style move in appointing Neil Warnock. That would not look out of place, Liam, in a comic strip in the Viz. I mean, when I seen that being, I'm thinking, is that when you see something on Twitter, right, and you're like, I'm going to double check if this is a real or a parody account. Because we've all made that mistake of, because somebody's called it Sky Sports News, you think it's a genuine story until you click on it and they've got 43 followers. And I remember Warnock getting appointed thinking, what are you playing at? But they seem to have overcome that and they got the appointment right. In relation to giving us a bloody nose, Ian, we'll see how it goes, and obviously we'll cover the game, and we'll cover the game as we always do, half an hour before kickoff. And I really do think it'll be the biggest test. I mean, that might seem obvious. It'll be the biggest test of the campaign when Aberdeen come to Celtic Park. And we're going to be looking at the potential lineup as well. I'm going to ask you a question, right? Because I think we've seen it at Celtic. Fergus McCann spoke about, after Tommy Burns was relieved of his duties, spoke about internally, didn't make it public, that when he appoints a Celtic manager, the Celtic manager cannot be from the British Isles. And that was what he stated was going to be his objective in announcing a new manager. And we know who replaced Tommy Burns, and we know who replaced Wim Jansen. Unfortunately, the person that replaced Joe Venglos, by the time we appointed John Barnes, Fergus McCann had left the building. But the reason behind it, having spoken to a few people who were involved at the club, Liam, was this emotional attachment, right, which is part of it. If you've got an emotional attachment to a club, I think that can work for and against you, because sometimes you get blinded by it. But also the fact that mentality and that psyche does not exist. Now, it doesn't always work. People have come in from left field and just not got the importance of the Scottish game. But what Aberdeen's boss doesn't have is a fear of Celtic or Rangers. So he will have an inbuilt system that, right, obviously it's going to be a bigger challenge than the other 12 games that we've won so far, but there isn't that same fear factor that I think is part of the Scottish psyche when you play in this division and in this country, Liam. Do you think that's one of the biggest reasons why he has been such a success? It's like naivety is bliss at times, isn't it? You come in, you think, all right, it's just another game. Slightly harder game, but we're going to prepare for it the same way in terms of looking and analysing our opponents and matching them in any way we possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, you only need to look at Ange Postecoglou for an example of that. When he came to the J League, Yokohama had not won a trophy for about 10 years.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
They never even got close. They typically finished like 4th, 5th, 6th in the league every year. And he was just like, nah, we're going to win this league. And they did it within 18 months. Because, like you say, he came in from outside, none of this inbuilt, losing mentality. Just like, no, this team's good enough to win this league. We're going to win this league. And I do think that has certainly played a part of it with Aberdeen. Good recruitment and a good system up there is helping them as well. But I think that, there is that lack of, maybe I'm phrasing this wrong, but a lack of respect, because I think that other clubs give Celtic and Rangers far too much respect sometimes.
Well,
I mean,
I get
the
that.
hardest game we've had all season was Falkirk, because they came out and had a goal and showed no fear. And you know what? It was one of the most entertaining Celtic games I've watched in ages.
You're right. It is sometimes too much respect, a bit of fear.
It's that old saying, isn't it? Is that they play the jersey?
Yeah.
You play the jersey, and it's like, this puts the fear of God in some players.
And I'm glad we're coming into this game heightened. All the senses are heightened. We're going to have to be at our best here, because obviously what we have afterwards is another massive challenge. Are they as strong as Dortmund? Possibly, Atalanta. So obviously, to prepare for that, I think this is one of the best. Because, in fact, I would argue this is the best challenge we can have at the moment to prepare for a Champions League game, insofar as the Glasgow Derby can often emotionally take too much out of a squad or a player. And I think that this game, in terms of the challenge and the quality of the opposition, it's the best game we could possibly have prior to the Champions League. We're going to run through the teams. We're going to ask Liam for a wee update on our Japanese contingent and whether or not Hatate's international career is hindering his club career with all that travel and no many games. There's a game ongoing as we speak, isn't there? Maybe 10
Australia
minutes
have
left.
just gone 1-0 up.
Oh dear! And is Maeda and Hatate still on the bench?
Give me 1 second. I'll tell you. I've got the wee thing here.
They were sitting on the bench with 20 minutes to go, and obviously, playing for Japan, and the travel is unbelievable. There was a stat around Hatate has travelled twice round the world without kicking a ball for Japan, and you think to yourself, well, and we'll get to this, how we're going to shape up in the midfield going in against Aberdeen. There is that fatigue, which is a massive concern. It used to be a concern for Tommy Rodgers as well, didn't it, when he was at Australia?
Yeah, they should have gone with Kyogo to Isla. Was it Isla he's going to, or Iona?
Is that where he went?
Yeah, he's been pictured today. Met some young Celtic fans. It's I think it might be Iona, actually. One of the small islands on the west coast.
I saw a picture. Is that what it was? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So what a guy.
There's a thing about Kyogo, Ian, right? And try this if you haven't done so already. All my mates with kids, or if the wee fella's got his mates round to play in the PlayStation, whatever, who are into football, I ask them, who's your favourite Celtic player? Every one of them says Kyogo. There's just something about Kyogo that kids love. Liam, what is it? Is it because he does have that wee cartoon character look about him, like the Powderpuff Girls, doesn't he? He's absolutely brilliant. You remember them? Yeah, that was a great cartoon.
He is one of those guys who quite often, when he was over here at least, fans would make kind of like wee sort of caricature style posters of him and all that. And it's there was one up until recently at the Japan games. There was one of Dai's in as well, but in that he had a big baldy head, so I think they've had to take that down for editing now.
Absolutely, yeah, he's a style guru now. So how are they getting on? Are they on the park yet? How long?
No, come on yet. It was an own goal, by the way, by Taniguchi for Japan. So 1-0 down, half an hour to go. No subs for Japan at all yet. Thing is, though, Junior Ito is also on the bench, and he's another attacking option who I think the manager prefers ahead of Dyson at the moment, which I don't understand. Yes, I'm seeing a question in the comments there. I do believe that Hatate is the only player in the squad that's travelled and hasn't had any game time yet.
Bizarre.
So, yeah, that's just Moriyasu, for want of a better word, just being an arse. There is no other way to put it.
You're not a fan. You're not a fan. You've said this before, Liam.
No, he's very petty with his kind of likes and dislikes with players. I mean, honestly, Kyogo could score like 25 goals in the next 20 games and he still wouldn't get picked. He has a snobbery towards the top 5 leagues in Europe, and he has, as I say, a stubbornness. He'll call players up and say, well, you're in the squad, so what's your problem? But players like Hatate just sit there kicking their heels all the time. And a game like this, 1-0 down with 25 minutes to go, exactly the sort of game Hatate could come on and have an impact in, as could Dyson.
Will that play a part in Brendan Rodgers' decision-making when it comes to the starting 11 at the weekend, the travel I'm talking about, when we're looking at the midfield, and Hatate, for example, because obviously I think Maeda is an absolute stick-on when it comes to picking your best team, but there's always this question in and amongst the midfield at the moment. Liam, does that play a part in Rodgers' mind, the travel?
Possibly, but to be honest, I mean, all right, it's probably about a 16-hour trip by the time you factor in the fact that you cannot fly direct from Japan to Scotland. You have to change somewhere. So I really do think it's a bit. It's. I mean, I understand why people talk about the travel, but you're flying first class. You're going to get a kip on the plane. It's not like me when I've been folded up in a seat on British Airways for 14 hours.
It's always good fun. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. They make it as comfortable as possible. We will talk about the midfield. We'll talk about the entire start 11 and how we think we're going to be shaping up. David Boyle, you're commenting on YouTube. If you're on the YouTube, give us a big thumbs up, like and subscribe to the channel. Can't wait to be back in paradise on Saturday. Hoping Maeda and Hatate are not too tired from the travel, just what we were talking about, David. And Jungle Lion, who is in sunnier climes, Hatate and Maeda on the bench with 20 minutes to go. Paul McQuaid, International Week dragging on. Ian, what does International Week mean for you? Do you switch off? Do you have a break? Will you watch the games, for example, Scotland playing Portugal? Or are you like me, you're very much keeping an eye on the Celtic players?
Yeah, I'm not really. I mean, look, I support Scotland, but and the Euros is on. I try to watch as many games as possible. But out here, you kind of feel a little bit like you're on the moon. So I've not made a special concerted effort to watch the games, to be honest. But of course, naturally look out for the Celtic-based players or the Celtic, our players wherever they're sort of playing their trade or not playing their trade. Sorry, whoever they're representing internationally. But again, not always. So it's it's not. It's a bit of a. I'm just sort of twiddling my thumbs until the league starts again.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, Liam, are we all falling into that trap? Because obviously, club football now, international football used to be a biggie. It really did, and the tournaments came round and it got a buzz. And I guess a big part of that was because televised football wasn't really as accessible as it is now. You can watch just about any game from around the world somewhere online. On a personal level, my interest in international football has waned massively in the last couple of decades. Where are you with it?
I'm lucky that I get to watch Japan. My wife is Japanese. My friends are all Japanese. I live here. I speak the language. I can just become a Japan fan. And the Scotland game the other day, and this is going to sound like I'm taking the mickey here, but I'm being sincere. We had a 3-day weekend in Japan this week, so it was like Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, right? But I didn't have time to go to the chemist on Friday to get my monthly prescription, my antidepressants. And I was like, do I really want to watch Scotland when I've not had my tablets? Like, genuinely, I thought, do I really want to put myself through this? And I thought, no, I'll just go to bed early and leave it. And I'm glad I did. Otherwise, I'd have been like that wee woman in Tune the Fat, doctor, I'll be needing a repeat prescription. Yes.
The Scottish national team at the moment, they're on a shocker of a run. And obviously, they're playing Portugal. And you're hoping that Tony Ralston, who I believe is the last man standing in relation to Celtic, will get another 90 minutes. Because really, Ian, I'm looking at this as a great opportunity for Ralston to get minutes. That's all I'm caring about at the moment, because he doesn't get much games for Celtic. So you're thinking 2 games in a week for him is brilliant. On the flip side, I said this to Kev yesterday, a week's rest for Callum McGregor at his age, brilliant. So these are the positives that I'm taking from the international break.
Yeah, but I think the thing with Ralston is, I mean, I love Ralston as a guy, but I just don't think he's kind of that quite the class that we need, if we're going to sort of evolve and go to the next level. But invariably, when he plays for Scotland, he's making mistakes because it's a high level. International football is a high level, so that can't do his confidence a massive amount of good. So I think it's potentially counterproductive, despite the fact that he's getting minutes in his legs. But he's a warrior, and I think he can, he's got that steeliness that he can sort of get around these things, and he's always decent when he's called upon. But I just think it's getting minutes for Scotland and not getting any sort of many minutes for Celtic. It's kind of telling, whether he's happy to sort of longer term to stick with that, or whether he wants to. You were talking yesterday about on the pod with Kevin, about players that have kind of, they've not quite made it at Celtic. They've gone out and had like a solid career away from Celtic. Is Ralston going to be one of those guys, or will he stay? Is he happy to sort of be understudy to various different sort of first choices and stay with Celtic and be a one club man? I don't know.
It's interesting. That's going to be very interesting to see how that develops, Ian, because he's 25, right?
Yeah.
He has played, once tonight's game is finished, he will have played more football in the last week than he has for Celtic all season. So that shows you just how little game time he really gets. And at 25, I look at Stephen Welsh at 24 and think, right, it's time for you to go, mate. You don't get enough games. Why am I not saying that about Tony Ralston? Is it a bit of favouritism? Perhaps. Is it because of his journey and the fact that he came back almost from the dead? We are moving into Halloween season, Liam, so let me use the reference. But I don't know, maybe it is favouritism. I think that players like him can be key to a squad. They can be key. The low maintenance guy, Liam, who might not play much, but when the chips are down, or if a new tranche of players comes into a dressing room or onto a training pitch, I get the vibe that Ralston will be one of the leaders within the squad.
Aye, you're always going to need that core. You're always going to need that core of like players who came through Celtic's system and who are maybe not the best players in the squad in terms of skill, but they've got the character. They know what it's all about, and like you say, they can also fill in when we need them. And Ralston, for me, is he's never going to be a world class player, but he's a very, very dependable league level player, and you need those. You need those when you're going to have a European campaign, when you're going to have injuries, when you're going to have squad rotation. You need guys like that.
Can I just say something? I'm surprised actually at this that I'm going to reveal or share with you. This is Tony Ralston's 10th season as a Celtic first team player, guys. It's his 10th season, right? So he made his debut in 2015-16, albeit he only played one game. He then plays 2 games in 16-17, and then the run is as follows: 7-5-4-1. Then he plays 47 games in Ange Postecoglou's first season. He plays more games in that one campaign than he had done in his entire Celtic career. He's followed it up with 2 seasons playing 18 games, and then this season he's played 3. So this is his 10th season, guys, right? But he's played 106 games. So he's actually averaging 10 games a season. But how sensational is that a player who's 25 is in his 10th season at Celtic Football Club? I find that astonishing. I do hope that he stays. I really do. Not just as an old pals act, not just because I've taken a real liking to him because of his attitude. I do think that guys like that are key to your squad. They're key to your squad. I mean, I think that, a player coming in will learn a lot about the standards and the expectations of Celtic Football Club through a small group of players. And that small group of players probably contains McGregor, Forrest, Tony Ralston, you would hope Stephen Welsh, and probably even Greg Taylor. There's a there's a core group of players like that. And that's where I think he's important. Celtic Girl, you're in. Good Jungle Lion, I hope they stay there. It would be great to have them both back safe and sound for Saturday. We are, of course, talking about our 2 players on international duty for Japan staying on the bench. William O'Toole. If Taylor doesn't sign up and Carter Vickers begins to be more injured than not, will we need to invest big in the next window? That takes us on to the subject, before we get on to the starting 11, of how happy you are with the squad. Liam, I'll start with you. I think Rodgers has done a remarkable job this season, mainly in getting a lot of the dead wood out of the squad. And I think that most of the players that have come in this season, and probably in the January transfer window last season, have contributed to the start 11 or the core group that we have. And I think he's done a great job. But looking that wee bit forward, because within a month or so, we're going to be talking about transfers in the January window. How happy are you with the squad? Where do you think we'll be focusing on come January?
I mean, I think we're in a pretty good place. I would like to see maybe another right back in case Johnson gets injured. Ralston, as we've agreed, is good as a backup, but at top level, maybe not quite. So if you're going for that incremental upgrade, maybe another right back.
Mm-hmm.
I think we definitely need something more in the forward options. We've got Kyogo and we've got Ida, and we can put Dyson in there if need be. But by the way, speaking of Dyson, Japan have made 3 substitutions so far, and as I suspected, Ito and Nakamura have come on and not Dyson, because that's 2 of Moriyasu's favoured attackers at the moment. So
we've seen that so often with managers. Remember, we Strachan wouldn't he pick Lee Griffiths when he was scoring 42 goals a season for Celtic?
There was the only excuse sketch where it was
Right.
the JK Pete the One-Eyed Whistle player or Derek Riordan. Right. He sends on the JK.
Anybody but Riordan. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, so you're thinking a striker, a right back. What's your thoughts on the wings, Liam?
Left, I'm happy with Dyson. I think Palma, jury's out. And I think Brendan Rodgers is moving towards thinking he's going to replace him in January because doesn't seem to fancy him. On the right, I think you have, James Forrest is always a good player to bring in, and I think he will be that way for at least another year or 2. I really like what I've seen from Kuhn so far this season. He's really come on. Yang, I still believe there's a player in there, and we see it in flashes when he comes on. If he's happy to just be a bit part player for the time being while he, builds up his confidence and establishes himself, then I would certainly keep him for another year or 2. Might be harder for him now that O's away. Our Japanese players that we had at one point, we had 5 of them. We've now got 3 of them.
Yeah,
but they're able to kind of talk to each other when need be, whatever. The fact he's the only Korean there now might make life a wee bit more difficult for Yang, but hopefully not.
How's Ideguchi getting on?
Last I heard, he was still injured, but I really hope he's back.
Dear me.
Aye. That boy just has no luck whatsoever.
Absolutely.
It's a shame because again, there's definitely a player in there somewhere.
Yep. And he gets the move to Europe, and it's not the first time, Liam, because obviously he got the move to Leeds United as well. Played some football in Portugal, I believe, and it just never worked out through bad injuries. It's a shame. It was Alloa Athletic, wasn't it, where he got the bad one?
Aye. He got studded. It was only his 2nd or 3rd game or something.
Yeah.
That was him. He never recovered.
That was a shocker. Yeah, we'll get stuck into where we are in relation to the Aberdeen game, but in terms of the squad, Ian, do you agree with Liam? Because I think if I'm looking at that squad at the moment, I think in terms of the defence, we've not seen a great amount of trusty, but I am concerned about Carter Vickers, the amount of games he misses. And I think that when you drop from the starting 2 in centre-half positions, which are still Liam Scales and Carter Vickers, and you drop down to your next best, and I'm not going to use Trusty as an example here because we've not seen enough of them. I'm talking Welsh and Nawrocki. I don't think they're good enough.
Oh, Japan have scored. Sorry.
Oh, yes. Not
1-1.
Not a Celtic player, unfortunately.
No, Mitoma.
Yeah. So I think that's a concern for me, Ian, the Welsh and Nawrocki thing. And we've seen it again. And by the way, I know it was a bounce game, but we've seen it last week where you're looking at these guys and you're looking at the central defensive area. I was looking at the wings. These were the two main areas I was looking at against Sligo. I wanted to see Yang and Palma in a competitive game. I wanted to see Nawrocki and Welsh. And none of the four of them impressed me in the slightest. I get what Liam says, but I get it gets to the point that he's got none of his compatriots at Celtic now, Liam, has he? Because Quan's away at Hibs as well. So, it's a big test for him. From what I've seen, and I'm not just basing it on the Sligo Rovers game, I don't think any of those four players will be at the forefront of Brendan Rodgers' mind when he's thinking about first picks or even second picks. I think if we get an opportunity to strengthen in those areas, we will.
Is that to me?
That's to you, Ian.
Yeah, sorry, mate. So, look, I think when we're talking about Ralston before, Welsh is a funny one. He hasn't got. If Welsh had the heart that Ralston had, I think there would be a player there. But I think I've my personal perspective, my personal opinion. I think Welsh has balled it a few times. He's made a mistake and he's gone off with an injury, and I don't know if that. I think that's his mettle. I don't think that's always the case that he's actually hurt himself, or maybe he's sort of overemphasized it. So we said before that one of the sort of key components of the window, recent window, was getting rid of a lot of the dead wood. I think Welsh falls into that. I think Palmer falls into that. We've got to get a bit more ruthless now, and to have that true strength and depth. Obviously, Nawrocki. I don't know that the jury's still out with him, I suppose, but how long do you give somebody? I think, again, do we class him as part of the dead wood? Got to be clinical, get rid and replace. In terms of the left back, I think we need a permanent deputy. If Valle is not going to be that permanent deputy, so whether Kieran Tierney actually comes in, I think that would be great. If he can stay injury free, he'd be amazing. I kind of tend to agree with Liam in terms of an able backup for right back. So it's I know Ralston's there in situ, but I think someone of a better quality would be there. I saw in the comments before, is there any truth in the rumour about Maeda to Aston Villa? I hope that's a scurrilous fake news story.
Liam will be able to, because I think you were saying that the way the media works over there, Liam, is that they do not run tittle tattle. They don't run speculation or gossip, do they?
No, not a word of it over here. So I think that's highly unlikely. Oh, also, since as a journalist, I have to admit when I got it wrong, Ideguchi has played 28 games this season, so he's actually doing quite well with Vissel Kobe. So
good on him.
Apologies. Someone in the comments mentioned it. I double checked it. Sure enough, 28 games this season. So no goals yet, but he's doing okay. So good for him.
Good on him. Absolutely. No, listen, I agree with when it comes to Nawrocki. I just think, Ian, it's not the same situation with Scales, whereby we could have given up at this stage of Scales' Celtic career. 1.5 seasons out, we could have given up on that player. And we didn't. But his journey was completely different. He was getting loaned out. He was playing games. He was trying to impress somewhere else. Nawrocki is deadwood for me. I mean, he's not going to play. And it's quite clear that if Scales and Carter Vickers are injured or out for any other reason, your next two picks are Trusty and Welsh. So Nawrocki's your fifth choice. And I think that he's only there for cover. He's only there for cover. And do you need 5 centre-halves? Probably if you've got someone like Carter Vickers, who is invariably injured for about 15 or 20 games a season, then you will need to have 5 centre-halves. So I think that's the only reason he's there. But it is a position I think we're going to be looking at in the summer. The wings, if you could buy that player that is equally as effective on both wings, brilliant. But if not, I don't think Maeda's got any challenge to his jersey. Don't think that's going to affect the way he plays, by the way. Some players need a challenge. I don't think Maeda does. And on the right-hand side, I think Kuhn and Forrest have got that covered. But I do think that we need to have another winger who's going to be pushing for a jersey. Up top, Kyogo Anida. Do we need another striker? I'm not so sure. Ideally, yeah, we would have a third one. And again, I think that in terms of deadwood and moving players on, guys, I think it's time for Odin Holm. I don't know if it's a loan deal, but he's not going to play. I mean, he's not going to play for Celtic, He's not in the Champions League squad. it's not worked out for him. Brendan Rodgers, I don't think, fancies him. Is he a victim? Ian, I'll ask you first. Is he a victim of that transfer window that Rodgers didn't really have much part in?
Maybe. He was part of the Air 2, wasn't he? Him and Lowell. When Rodgers came out and sort of admonished him a little bit. Yeah. So, but the boy's got talent. Whenever I've seen him,
they'll call them the Somerset 2, right?
The Somerset 2, right? Yeah. So they, and one of them went, and one of them's still there. Whether he gets a chance with Rodgers, I don't know. But again, it's his application. So we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. It's been proven that if you apply yourself, it can change the way your career goes at Celtic. Rodgers has done that with a few players. So you never know. But yeah, the way it's looking at the moment, he's probably going to be going out the door.
Yeah, and this is the thing; it won't affect the way that we approach any of the games because he's not involved in the squad in any way, shape or form. This will take us up to the Aberdeen challenge this weekend. Let's get some comments in. I want you to let me know in the comment section, can Aberdeen challenge for second place this season? If you're going to give us a comment on that or an opinion, tell us why. If you think Aberdeen can push on, tell us why. If not, please leave your comments in the comment section on YouTube or wherever you're watching A Celtic State of Mind. Jay Connolly, Jay Larkin. Can't see Thielen replicate McInnes's man-for-man system. That leaves him choice of a high press in the hope of scoring, then hang on or low block and stay in the game for as long as possible. It'll be the latter. And here we go, by the way. Shebrag there. Don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to watch this, right? We have a special guest on every single week on This Is Acsom. Kevin Graham quite rightly said that it was almost a return to the original format that we had on A Celtic State of Mind, but neither Kevin nor I could afford a video camera, so we used to do it on audio, and we used to interview people with a Celtic State of Mind, and we've returned to that for the new show, This Is Acsom. Last week it was Rose Riley, and Rose Riley's story is sensational, unbelievable. It's an unbelievable life story, as well as being very interesting in the fact that she played football at a very high level, winning the World Cup, for example, for Italy. How does a Scottish-born footballer win the World Cup for Italy? Go and watch the show. That's all I'm saying. And anybody who's got like kids who want to give the kids a life lesson and never giving up and giving them a motivational, inspirational story, isn't it?
Aye. No, listen, I've got two young nieces, and I said to my wee brother, I said, get them to watch that. I said, if ever the girls need motivation for whatever they want to be in life, Rose Riley's there, and that is a brilliant life lesson. Not just maybe particularly for women, but I think for anybody in general that needs to learn about how to focus on your goals and how to get there, regardless of what odds are against you. Aye, she was sensational.
And the way as well, Ian, in life and work, etc., we've come across people who don't get to the point, and I think that there's too much BS out there, and people sometimes do it deliberately, sometimes they don't like to upset you. Rose Riley, straight to the point, no nonsense character, and I think we need more people like her, not just in football, but in life in general, Ian.
I think so, but I suppose that's kind of the way modern society has gone. You know, the way people are sort of this cancel culture, and you know, we call people snowflakes, I suppose. They can't take some criticism, but be constructive or not. But I personally like the direct approach. I'd rather be told if you want to get the quickest way to get to where you want to be, if you want to achieve something, I think, is you have to have these hard conversations. Constructive. As long as it's constructive and it's there to help and assist and guide you. But if you put too much fluff on things, I think it's hard to discern actually what you have to do, and so I think to deconstruct things in life, take the fluff off, take the sugar coating off, that's kind of my language, but again, if that was me as a football manager, I'd be consigned to the dustbin as a dinosaur.
Well, this is the problem in the modern day, and that's why I think it was so refreshing last week, Ian, to be faced with someone who is absolutely a force of nature, just telling you like it is, not just for the sake of it. But because it's cutting through all that nonsense that people are sugarcoating it these days. Russell Conway, and then you go on Twitter and everything goes. Russell Conway, great to see you as always. Afternoon blessings. Russell used to help me out at the Stirling Celtic Superstore when I had to go in and pick up quality Street Gang books. He would order them in, we'd get them at the store, and I'd pick them up. Good guy. You don't look a day older than 60, Liam. You see the thing, Liam? You're not going to get a happy birthday. You're not going to get the fact that you've lost God knows how much weight by being a fitness fanatic over the last couple of years. Happy birthday when it comes anyway.
Can always depend on everybody here to keep me humble. Thanks, everybody.
100%. But it does lead us. It leads us on to the exercise regime that you have at the moment. We were going to talk about it last week, but your Wi-Fi was playing up. Give us a wee insight into your charity endeavours, please.
Yeah, apologies last week. I had a blown transformer, which is probably why Megatron's got such a smile on his face. But anyway, moving on. No, I'm doing a 500-kilometer walk over the course of the month of October. As of today, I have done, let me just do the maths here, 360 kilometers. So I'm on target to hopefully get the 500 rounded off by end of this week, beginning of next week.
Well done, mate.
And this is all in aid of mental health research. You know, I talked earlier on in the show about the fact that I do take medication for my mental health. I am not in any way ashamed to admit that. A possible side effect is the bad jokes I occasionally come out with, but you know. And it is something that I think everybody needs to be a bit more aware of. So there is a donation link. At the moment, I've managed to, thank you to everybody who has donated so far, by the way. I've managed to get to 278 Australian dollars. The target is 500 for me personally. So if we get the 500, I'll chuck in another 100 of my own. I'll make that commitment if everybody works with me on it. And I'd like to say, you know, we do have the donation link is, I believe, in the information for the show today, isn't it?
Yeah, we did share it last week as well, Liam.
Yeah. Apologies, I wasn't here to actively tell you what it was about. Just to get the money. Sorry, I'm not here to actually tell you why.
I mumbled and tripped my way through it, Liam. But it definitely is better coming from yourself, my friend. Great effort. And what I would say as well is, as we are advancing in years, gentlemen, you're coming up to 41. Ian, you're not that far off myself. It occurred to me that probably for the last 9 years, right? This is self-disclosure here. I hadn't really been doing much in the way of exercise, which is unusual for me in relation to my life as an adult. I generally did do a lot of exercise. And so I decided to start going out for a daily run. That's where it started, Liam, right? And I think I've shared this with you guys. But because of my advancing age and what my old granny used to tell me, old age doesn't come by itself, things were just, no right. I was pulling things and stretching things and basically having to take 3 days off every time I went for it. So I decided it must be the terrain, Ian. Nothing to do with my body giving up. It must be the terrain. It must be that hard surface. So I joined the gym for the first time in 9 years, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, that has gone the same way. So muscle strains, this, that, and other. And basically it culminated in me tearing something on the inside of my knee the other day. Don't leave it 9 years. This is my point. Don't leave it 9 years. Get out there, because when I'm out there running, be it on a treadmill or out in the fresh air, I feel like $1 million. The rest of your day, you can feel the chemicals running through your system, all natural, endorphins, I think they call them. You've got more energy, you're more productive. And I just fell into the habit of not doing it. And sometimes in this country, it's easy because it's so dark and damp outside. It doesn't look that inviting. Probably that's why I joined the gym as well. So brilliant inspiration by Liam. And if you're 40-something like me, get out and just do it. Even if you start off with the walks, you didn't want to be tearing stuff in your knee and all that, leaving it too late. Brilliant initiative. Thank you for sharing it, Liam. The links will be underneath.
Just add, if I may, that the health benefits of this are incredible, because last week I did a 10-kilometer run for the first time ever in my life. And it was purely because it was pouring with rain outside, and I've got to, in my head, I'm thinking I've got to do 25k a day. I'll need to go to the gym and make this up. And I did. Yeah, took me the best part of 70 minutes to do it. So I'm not exactly going to be challenging for Olympics anytime soon. But for a guy who was stuck in goals because he was too fat and slow to play anywhere else, I think I did all right, you know.
How did you feel after it though, Liam? How did you feel?
I mean, not that bad actually. I was back at the gym the next day and I managed to do it again. Did it again today in a slightly faster time than last week. So it's the key is just pacing yourself. I mean, take as much time as you need, because I think it used to be an advert on the telly back. I think it was Gavin Hastings. He used to say, like, you know, walking a mile uses the same calories as running a mile, and that's true.
Get out there. Just get one foot in front of the other, even if it's yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And what I would add to, look, if people can't donate, that's, you know, I'm not gonna be stupid about that. I know there's a lot of people with a lot of things to deal with right now. So what I would ask, instead of a donation, if you can't donate, give your pals a phone, make sure they're all right. Okay, anybody who's on their own, you know, my dad lost my mum earlier this year. I check in with him every day, make sure he's okay. You've all probably got somebody like that out there, so just give a wee phone or even just a wee text message. Just make sure everybody's all right. Just
keep an eye on them.
That's more important than money. In all honesty.
100%, mate. Well done for raising awareness. It really is. It's so important. Andy Lee, very good point, PJ. I've kind of dismissed Aberdeen. Wee bit of arrogance creeping in. I don't even know if it's arrogance, Andy. I just think we're so conditioned now to think, no, they can't do it. Hibs can't do it. Hearts can't do it. It's all about budgets. I'll tell you something. With regards to Aberdeen budget-wise against Rangers, for example, going into the January transfer window, is the gap as big as Celtic and Dortmund, where they're spending £300 million in a transfer window and we're maybe spending 20-odd million, and that's not even net? I'm not sure it is. So, yeah, I welcome the challenge. A lot of Celtic fans don't want a challenge. Look at the hysteria. When we lose a couple of games, they expect us to win every game. I think they do. I think it's healthy to have a standard that you've set yourself. But I would take this up here, Marquis. Would you give up Celtic dominance for a competitive league with teams out with Glasgow win titles? I don't think it works like that. I think what happens is you raise your levels. You get that competitive league, Mark, and I think you as a football club raise your levels. Celtic might still dominate if you had 3 or 4 really good sides in the league, but the entire standard of the league would increase. And I think that's only good for the game. Ian, give me a wee talk through your predicted 11 then for Aberdeen, because there's some interesting ones there. Greg Taylor's out. Carter Vickers, not sure yet. It looks as though he might be back, but Rodgers will probably confirm that on Friday. You're looking at the wings, you're looking at the midfield. Do you start with Kyogo or Ida up top? How do you shape up against Aberdeen?
So who's out, did you say, sorry?
Greg Taylor's not going to make it. Right. And although Carter Vickers, it's been suggested that he would play against Aberdeen. Basically, Rodgers said he'd be back after the international window, but I think he'll clarify that on Friday.
Right. Well, I mean, I'd stick with the the tried and tested as much as possible. Obviously, Valle will have to slot in at left back, and he's done not badly. I think he's sort of coming onto a game. The more minutes he's getting, and obviously coming into a more settled side rather than that first game against Falkirk when it was sort of wholesale changes. In terms of the midfield, I think you mentioned before about the sort of the travel and things like that. That's why it's good that we've got that sort of strength and depth. So I would maybe sort of keep Hatate on the bench, and go Bernardo with Kalmak and Engels. Up top, obviously, I think it picks itself. We've got obviously Hatate being away. Maybe sort of change him out, maybe start him on the bench. But again, if he's not played and it's just the travel, he's a Duracell bunny, so he may be all right. But again, for me, it's sort of the tried and tested as much as possible, rather than too many changes, and then change things from the bench if we need to. So
you start with Kyogo up top,
always,
in the middle, yeah,
always.
I mean, my team would be Schmeichel, Johnston, Valle, Trusty, Scales. like you say, obviously a couple of them would be second picks if everybody's fit, but that's a solid enough backline. Midfield for me, I agree. I think Hatate's on the bench for this one. I think Bernardo, McGregor and Engels start, and then up top it's Maeda, Kuhn and Kyogo. Any changes that you would make to that starting 11, Liam?
No, I mean, I think that if Carter Vickers is fit, he's on the bench. I don't think we risk him. But at the same time, you want to get him some game time. So hopefully, as much as we're talking about the challenge from Aberdeen, hopefully we're in a position maybe midway through the second half where the game is won and we can bring him on for half an hour or so, ideally. But if the game is still competitive at that point, I don't think you risk him.
No. I mean, it's one of these situations as well. Is there one eye on the Atalanta game? Do we play the start 11 as close to as we will against that? Two completely different opponents, of course. Looking forward to the football being back. You might want to watch the Scotland game against Portugal tonight. Strangelove the Doctor is delighted for Aberdeen and their supporters and hope the club can maintain and even grow stronger moving forward. I think the key will be in this scenario to keep the gaffer, because you're going to get votes, especially if they get to January, they're still in the mix. They are going to attract suitors from elsewhere. We've been kind of teetering between 7 and 750 on the old live views, which is decent for a Tuesday during international break week. So thank you, every single one of you, for getting involved. Let us know, can Aberdeen actually challenge for second place? How do you think the game will go this weekend? And what's your start 11? Let us know in the comments field. One other thing I would say to you, as we move into 2025, we've been on a monthly basis going out there and meeting people on the Acsom live shows, mainly in Glasgow, but a wee bit further afield. Where should we bring Acsom? Where do you want us to bring Acsom? Let us know in the comments. And who would you like to see on the stage? There you go. Because obviously we've done probably 20 plus. Who would you like to see on the stage live with the Celtic State of Mind? Let us know in the comments section. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. And thank you to Liam and Ian for joining me on a Celtic State of Mind.